You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 610. For tonight, we're going to revisit the Jedi Knights comic series. We broke down the very first issue a couple months ago now, and we've had 3 issues come out since then. And so we felt it was time to kind of revisit this, see how things are going, see how things are progressing, kind of give our thoughts and opinions on how those 3 issues are going. And to do all that with me tonight is, of course, Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Good. Yeah. It's Pride Month, and I don't get to wear this very often. I've got my
I was going to ask you what design was on your shirt there.
Yeah, it's the Falcon, or not the Falcon, the Jedi Knight and Empire logos. You ever seen the one where they mash them together?
Oh yeah,
it's that, but it's just the Pride one. I picked this up when I was I think it was in 2019. They had a whole Pride collection there, and so supporting my family members, I was like, I'm going to grab one of these. And
it's Celebration.
Yeah, it's Celebration. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So. Anyways, but yeah, thanks. What we got enough to talk about here with these 3 issues, which, we'll get into our opening thoughts, but it's a really interesting series so far. And I mean that probably in the best way and maybe in an odd way as well. But I've got some thoughts on that here. Before we get into all that, I know you want to say thank you to some special folks.
Yeah, a special thanks over to Zeralens, who upgraded her membership to the This Is the Way tier. So thanks, Zeralens, for upgrading with us. Great job on the Fact Boy. She was out there with you and Dante and Daz and Steve as well. So thanks to everyone who came out for Patreon Top 3 for Andor Season 2. Go check that on Patreon if you haven't already. And of course, a huge thanks to all of our Patreon members, but especially our now part of the Tribe members: Alex, Danny, Mike, Lauren, Dante, Riss, Jackson, Sharkman, Dan, Daz, Uncle Leon, Josh, Jacob, Reader Reborn, and I've got a Brad feeling. And our Delusions of Grandeur, thank you for laughing. And Delusions of Grandeur members, our top tier. Now, this is Rod Racing, CJ, Steve, and Rob. Again, kttcast.com/Patreon. If you are interested or curious about Patreon, go out there and see what we offer. We've got kind of a range for everybody: audio only, video, chances to come onto the show if you're interested in that kind of thing. We'd love to have you as part of the community. We really do enjoy. We have a really great group of Patreon members. So invite you to check that out, kttcast.com/Patreon. Albert's going to tell us what show we got here in just a minute, but I want to say thanks to all of our YouTube folks as well. kttcast.com/YouTube. If you're listening to this, thanks for the download. We'd love for you to join us on a live stream like some of these amazing folks so far. Music Train, Alex, My Star Wars Guys, One Up versus CPU. We see a few folks out there in the background too. Please do come out and say hello. And a huge thanks to all the folks who have signed up for the YouTube membership. I think we have 10 now. Hours.
Wow.
So that's pretty crazy. Yeah.
That's great.
So
thank you.
Yeah. Huge thanks to everybody's doing that. It's $1. We don't really keep much of it, but you get a little icon next to your name and some emojis. It's kind of fun. And the more people that sign up, they give us more options to open more stuff up. So it's just something fun. Offer it for y'all to take a look at. So we hope you enjoy that too. But thanks for coming out. kttcast.com/YouTube if you want to join our live stream.
Yeah. And this weekend, we've got a Patreon episode scheduled for Sunday night. We are going to revisit The Acolyte because it has been 1 year. And traditionally, we've come back and did a 1 year later show. We reflect on
1 year from today.
Today, as a matter of fact, yeah,
June
as
4th,
this recording. And but yeah, it's we're going to revisit The Acolyte, kind of talk about how is it settled in now that it's been a year later. Maybe talk about some of the things that have spawned of it since then, whether that's actually material such as books, which we have, of course. And then just, anything else, other stories that have spun up, when there's some comic stuff that's come up here recently. So yeah, it'll be fun revisit of the Acolyte, talking all things there. And on top of that, right now, if you go to youtube.com/CantinaCast, you can check out Lauren's latest spoiler-free review of Trials of the Jedi. This is the last book that's come out or the adult books that have come out for Phase 3 of the High Republic. We're here, 4 years later, and written by Charles Soule. It is probably, I know I keep saying this, but it's up there now with like one of the best. And if you look at any of the early reviews, you'll see that if this has been a series that you've enjoyed, you are definitely going to enjoy this book. It's that good. And so she's got a spoiler-free review. I forget when the embargo lifts. I think it's next week or maybe
It's
2 weeks from now.
I think it's like I think it's next week. Yeah.
Okay. It's very soon though, but the embargo, when that lifts, she'll have her complete review out and you guys can get spoiled to your heart's desire. But definitely recommend you guys pick that book up if you have not read it and you're caught up, because unfortunately this is one of those books I feel like you do kind of have to have everything, at least a good understanding of what's come before, at a high level, so you can really enjoy the payoff at the very end of that book. So
yeah, and everything on Jedi Novel Archive. Lauren's got all of the books. She's done such an amazing job. So she'll get you caught up on everything you need to know. If you haven't been following those, do give her a follow on that playlist too.
Yeah,
amazing job there. And if you've been wanting to go hang out on Planet X, this is your book.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean that's the backdrop.
The majority of it, right? Yeah.
Right. So, okay, well, let's talk about Jedi Knights 2 through 4. Now, I want to say that when this series came out, I was super excited because one, I was really enjoying the artwork that they were teasing us with. I think I mentioned Mark Guggenheim is like I really loved a lot of the work that he did on Spider-Man. He had this prolific run on Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man to be specific, and enjoyed his work then. And so I was like, man, this is going to be my comic. And I will say I'm still pleasantly surprised. Like I have enjoyed all of the issues. I've got some questions about this series, and we're going to tease those out here in a second. But give me some of your opening thoughts, and I'll kind of add in a little bit more flavor here as far as where I'm sitting with the series as we move on.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe we could even just trade off things that we're kind of enjoying about it so far, and then maybe some of the things that we're sure. Because I think you and I align pretty closely on this one in general, which just doesn't always happen here. So I think one of the things that I've been a huge fan of in this comic book that has kind of plagued other Star Wars comics is the art inside the book.
Yeah.
So the artist on this one is Madabak Musabekov.
Musabekov, yeah.
And they have been at times absolutely brilliant and stellar, and at worst been very, very good.
Yes.
So it's been very consistent. It's been very consistently good. There's a few moments, of course, there's always faces here and there that might, kind of niggle at you just a little bit, but at the same time, it's, it has been so good and so enjoyable that the inside of this book is a really joy to read and look at. And that hasn't been the case with some other Star Wars books. So I think if you're looking for a reason to kind of get into it and stick with it, the consistent art has been a definite plus for me and maybe one of the highlights for me so far. What's one for you?
Well, you took the best ones. No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
Well, maybe talk about Mark Guggenheim then.
Yeah, I mean, the writing has been great. Like, I've really enjoyed the writing. I said this when I read the first issue. There's just something about an experienced writer that you can kind of tell. And I'm not throwing shade at anybody else or writers that don't have a lot underneath their belt and are coming in to write in Star Wars. But one, it is a different thing to have a writer who's seasoned and has written comics before. Two, the transition to writing comics about superheroes and then writing about Star Wars seems like it would always be easy to do because in our world, especially with Jedi Knights, they kind of are the superheroes, but it doesn't always translate very well. Sometimes it feels a little awkward and kind of sluggish when they're trying to speak Star Wars through comics. And, you think about like Cavan Scott, he's kind of a natural. Charles Soule, I think, is a natural. And I feel like Mark Guggenheim is in that same boat as far as just being able to transition into this world and give us a good quality written product. I think I don't know if this would consider this a negative. It's more of a question. I think I'm still questioning the writing itself and just trying to understand, like, what is this series really trying to do? I love the idea that we get one issue and it's one and done for the most part so far. There is kind of an overall narrative story, there's like an overall arching story that's kind of happening in the background.
Starting to kind of coalesce, yeah.
And it's focused around Qui-Gon Jinn, which is great because, I mean, who doesn't want more Qui-Gon Jinn? But it's so sparse right now that I feel like it's probably unbalanced to the point where I'm like, not that interested in it just yet. And I'm reading it more just because I like the writing and like the artwork, but I'm not that vested in it just yet, if that makes any sense. And so when I say that, it feels like this comic is, if you were a huge fan of the prequel era and especially the Jedi of this prequel era, you're probably in heaven because you get to see everybody so far. I mean, we get to see all the Shakti and Qui-Gon, and of course you got Kenobi in there. We talked about all the Jedi that we saw during the first issue. That's all great stuff. But if you're not really into that, then you're probably looking for something more to kind of pull you in and keep you on this comic, especially if we're not paying for it. So thank you, Marvel Comics, for sending us the previews. But if you're investing that much money into the comics, you know, they're pretty expensive and you want a reason to stick around. So I don't know that people are, I don't know how much of a hook this has been for anybody that's not a huge prequel era fan or someone that's just really, found their footing with the writing itself.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Mark Guggenheim's writing has been very solid, very good. Nothing seems out of place. The characters seem, like you would expect them to be. And some of the dialogue has been a little sparse at times. One of our CPU in the chat was talking about the last issue. He's talking about issue 3. It was only like 20 words. It was more like it was a report. It was like Obi-Wan's report. We'll walk through it here,
yeah,
and kind of let you know. But it was very different and odd for a comic, and kind of ends abruptly. And then like, it's why do we have this? Like, what does this actually mean? But I think from the actual dialogue, it's been very good. And I think your feedback on the story, I think is 100% valid. I think the story is difficult to understand totally where it's going yet. Again, when new comics launch, like a new line launches, usually they kind of launch with a big bang and they give you a really good feel for the characters. We already know the characters. We don't have to reset them, right? So when you go and look at a traditional Marvel comics with a Wolverine or a Spider-Man or Fantastic Four or whatever, they're usually changing something up. They're adjusting something. With Star Wars comics, we don't really do that because it's all canon.
Yeah.
And we can't really do that.
Right.
Which is a little unfortunate in many ways, but it's difficult for that story if you don't kind of jump right in and start to lead it. And we get a little bit with Qui-Gon, like you said, but it's just kind of all over the place a little bit. So that consistency of stories of what am I reading? What am I vesting in? I think these next couple of issues, when we get to 5, 6, and so on, I think we need to kind of lay a little bit heavier into like, okay, what does this arc look like? Because it's not going to be our typical, 4-book arc and we're done. And this is an ongoing series. So we're going to jump in and out of storylines. This is just what we do in the main Star Wars lines, and is what we do across comic books in general that aren't one shots or miniseries, right? Or limited series. Yeah. So we could expect that, right? But again, like one of our CPUs saying in the chat, it's an enjoyable book. Like the dialogue, the dialogue is good. The characters are good. There's nothing wrong with any of it, which is a great thing to be able to say. But the hard part is, I don't know how vested I am into it.
You're right.
And so that's another challenge part. One of the things that I've really enjoyed though is like, I love Raza's covers. So Raza is the cover artist. He's been the cover artist for these first 4 so far, and they've been absolutely stellar. Like just absolutely bonkers stellar. We got it for our title card today. We've got the covers up here. We're going to share like the preview pages that we were kind of allowed to or suggested to, and we'll keep the covers on there too, so you can kind of see Raza's work too, because it is just absolutely phenomenal. It is beyond amazing. I'm a huge fan of some of his work, and you really get great contrast on characters and saturation and where it's needed, and it's not overdone, but it's just got this great realism to it too. That's very menacing when it needs to be, and very, I don't know, it just elicits a lot of emotion from you when you see these covers and you just want to pick it up. So kudos to Marvel for putting your best foot forward there. I think for the first time in a while, we've had some really good covers, but these have been really, really good for the cover A versions here. Yeah,
proverbial eye candy for the primary covers, but there, some of the alternate covers are no slouches either. There's some pretty good ones that have come out so far.
The character ones have been really good. I think we may have kind of highlighted the Yoda one last time, but they have like the lightsaber and then the face of the character off to the side of it, and each issue has a different character. I think they've had Yoda, Qui-Gon, and so on. And so I think those are nice because they're simple, and they accentuate the light, and they accentuate the lightsaber, and they look great when you kind of stack them next to each other on a shelf.
So, for sure.
Yeah, so they really go well together as kind of a nice cover B, and then they've got version copies of that too, rather than just the trade edition. So great alternates there too for collectors or for people who don't want all of the trade dress on it.
Yeah. The other, I got one other quick thing. I just want to do a quick shout out. I really liked issue number 3, which is kind of weird, I think.
The art in it was absolutely bonkers good.
It was so good. And then the other cool thing was there are no panels in that comic. Every page is a full-fledged page as you churn, like every single one of them. There are no breakup panels or at all throughout it.
Very cool.
And then I don't know that I've ever actually read a comic like that. I've seen some comics where they do that in, big pieces, or every page is a 2-fold, spread kind of thing. But I don't know that I've ever read one where everything is just full page, every single page itself. And a lot of that was done because we got Star Wars now has kaiju, which are, large animals like Godzilla and that sort of thing. So as a Godzilla fan, I was like super stoked.
They have Kaijura.
Right, but they're called Kaijura. Yeah. So I think that was...
You're drawing way too many. You're inferring way too many things that are not confirmed.
No, I'm not. I'm not reading between the lines.
The giant beasts are not kaiju, Albert.
Yes.
I don't know where you.
They're Kaijura. And it was cool because it felt like the pages had to be that big to really accentuate just how large and scale everything was. And so I did even like the close-ups that they had of like Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn. They were still a full page, right? And it was just really cool to see all the art and how much time and effort went into the artistry there. But I really enjoyed that issue, and I just like the fact that we've got Kaijura in Star Wars now, because I think that was pretty cool. So, but it was a very short issue. Oh my gosh, like no dialogue, and I was done in like 2 minutes.
Was it actually the full, like usually comics are like 23 pages, something like that? Was it actually 23 pages?
I think it was, because I'll have to go back and look.
It just flips fast because there's literally just a little.
It's a picture book.
Yeah, and we'll get to it here in a minute, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's enough. Let's get into. We'll talk about more of the stuff that worked and what didn't, I guess, as we continue on. So that first issue number 2 that we're going to get into is called The Deepest Cut. And there's the artwork there. That looks great. I mean, Atha Prime. We talked about him as one of those characters that was part of the line of toys that was supposed to come out after Return of the Jedi. It got scrapped. The design was reused here. And I thought, we'll get into it, but I felt like, it was a nice tease as to what we could be expecting with the character, but I got a lot of questions still about that character.
This was a good issue because you're right. It teased the character in really nicely, and you get your feet wet. You kind of feel the menace of it. It really puts up they put up a really great fight against Yoda. So you feel that venomous aspect to it, and they leave it on a cliffhanger. We'll talk about some of the design choices of the beasts, of the monsters, though. Well, we're talking about it right now. How about that? Yep.
So the real quick synopsis, or I guess the prelude to this, is Yoda and what's her name?
Vecna Mooncrest.
She's one of the new Jedi that was introduced in issue number 1. We got to see her. She's kind of like the rebellious. What's the word that they use to describe her? But either way, she's a little bit outspoken,
very headstrong,
Yeah, probably way to go. I like her character though. I like that we have Jedi like this in this era, because I don't know that the existing Jedi that we had during the prequel era kind of fit the way she is. So it's nice that we got her. But they were sent to this moon here called Viros, and they're there to go look there's some rumors that something malevolent is happening, something really dark and sinister is happening there, and so they're sent to go just find out what's going on. Right, that's kind of how the issue starts. And when they get there, the issue starts. And if you want to pull that scene up here, this is important. We want to show this. We're not going to show the whole comic just because we can't. But we want to show like the creatures themselves. You can see them in the background. They're like these bipedal like creatures. Although I don't remember if they ran on all 4. At one point they were like standing up, but they've got like these horns, rather than coming out the top of their heads, they're coming out the sides of their heads, almost like ears. And they've got a ton of teeth. They've got like metallic scaly carcasses as well. And so you get the sense it feels like aliens in a lot of ways. Like, I mean, that's kind of the closest thing.
The way they drew, they have one that's solo by itself.
Yeah.
And when you look at it, you don't really notice the horns or anything like that. It actually looks like the creature from Alien.
Yeah. One of the xenophobes from Aliens.
Right.
And I think that's intentional, because we do learn a little bit later that their the shells are, harder than like Durasteel, and the lightsabers aren't as effective on the outside, kind of thing.
Right.
But they're completely surrounded by these. And so it opens up with one of these teasers like, oh, how did we get here? Let's rewind to, earlier that day. And so we flash back to Yoda and Vecna showing up on this planet. They're greeted by this this major domo, whose name is Blutok, the major domo of the Prime, right? That they're there to see what's going on. They're there to investigate reports of, again, sinister experiments being conducted on the planet. And so the major domo walks him over and takes him to what looks to be just, agriculture. And he's like, look, everything's on the up and up here. It's all just beautiful agriculture. These biofields that we've created are nothing more than what you see here, right? Mm-hmm. He ends up leaving because he's got to go get them water or something. And, they kind of have a talk about it, like, okay, something still doesn't feel right here. But nonetheless, they say their goodbyes and take off in their shuttle. And, as they're ascending and taking off, they decide to jump out. So Vecna and Yoda jump out, and now they're going to go undercover, or I guess secretly go in and infiltrate the headquarters there and try to find out exactly what's going on here. What's the real, sinister plot that's going on. It's more than agriculture.
Right.
They start making their way through the tunnels or whatever it is, not tunnels, the facility. Right. Thank you. And Yoda's starting to pick up senses of like pain, suffering, darkness. All right, he calls whatever he's feeling mindless souls in torment. He says they're empty vessels filled only with the evil of their master. And they're kind of making their way through this. And this is where the first question that comes up, again, not necessarily feedback, but I had to read this a few times trying to understand like what was going on here. But Vecna suddenly is kind of racked with pain. She like hunches over. Yeah. She's racked with pain, and she starts talking about how she's had some, congenital condition, and she's had some implants that have been put inside of her. And because she's too close to a certain type of radiation, it's now, she's hurting from that. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. This is a character trait or depth. Oh yeah, I didn't even notice that on the cover. Can you zoom in on that? Does it show like metallic? Okay, so she's got like some cybernetics or something in there, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and you can see this kind of in issue 1, but they weren't as pronounced. They almost look like tattoos, but she definitely has, and she calls them implants, that something is embedded within her arm that helps offset this congenital condition, but it's subject to, or it's highly susceptible to radiation though.
Yeah. And so I like the idea. Like, I think that's really neat. Like, okay, we've got a character who's just not a cookie cutter Jedi, we talked about her personality already, but then there's something, I guess not right about her, or she's been fixed and altered by cybernetics, and she's got a weak spot with radiation. This is all great, but then we go to the next panel, and she's fine,
upright and fine. Yeah,
yeah.
And
so
having to fight these creatures, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she just sucked it up or used the Force to kind of bypass the hurt that she was going through, but. I have no doubt this will probably come up later down the road. It's gonna have to come back. I would assume they wouldn't just bring that up, right? Maybe they would. Right. So, anyways, she seems fine. They eventually make their way to like the chamber that's full of all these aliens that we see at the very beginning, right? The start of the comic, they're completely swarmed by all of them. They ignite their lightsabers and they're trying to fend these off. And this is where we get into Yoda realizing that, hey, our lightsabers aren't as effective on the outside, and so. He's like, well, let's try the underbelly. Let's try the inside of it, which is more effective. But they're doing a great job here, fighting them off as best they can. And then in typical Yoda fashion, because Yoda always books it whenever things are really dire, he decides just to leave. He tells Vecna.
He notices Atha Prime out of the corner of his eye.
He saw her. Yeah, the entire time Atha was watching from like high above on some little perch or balcony of sorts. And so he just leaves the fight and says, Vecna, deal with the creatures. And she's like, WTF, dude? Like, what the heck, So anyways, he leaves and poor Vecna's there to kind of fend them off. And then we get into like a really interesting part because Yoda eventually catches up with Atha, and they actually, they have a little discussion at first. Atha's talking about how proud he is of his creatures, right? And he says like he doesn't have a quarrel with the Jedi. I don't know if you've got any of this to show.
No.
But he does drop the name of these creatures, which are the Zerexi. I think I'm saying that correctly. But he calls them mindless, obedient, deadly. There's a moment in there where Vecna's fighting them, and she says they're, quote, damn near unkillable, right? So they're pretty hardy. And then he talks about, these creatures, Atha says these creatures are his, quote, scalpel to wield against the galaxy's ills. And when Yoda challenges him on that, he says, look, it's no different than what the Jedi are doing, right? The Jedi feel like they can just go around and interject whenever they need to and interfere whenever they need to and heal the galaxy as best, to their fitting. Why can't he do the same kind of thing is really his take on this.
This has come up several times, right? The High Republic, I think we started to see this from the Nihil a little bit. And we've seen this in some of the prequel era material as well. And you see it even after Return of the Jedi, I think, and especially in the Legends book of like who has the right to decide what's right and what's wrong, and what does sovereignty actually look like? And again, we could probably surmise that Atha Prime's probably not doing this for, making the world a better place or making the galaxy a better place.
Peace and prosperity.
Right. Yeah. So clearly it's whatever vengeance he has or what other, grudges he's holding against whomever is out there. This is his weapon against the galaxy. But we find that he's just got vats of these creatures, like it's almost like a cloning pod. There's just tons of them in these rooms throughout all of his tunnel system and this facility that he's got where Yoda and Vecna were touring. And we see some of this, throughout the issue as well, of how many that at the Prime is creating, and he's got this army developing, and it could be something very serious. It'd be turned on to the galaxy that I think even the Jedi would struggle with, because, like you said, the Durasteel-like hide is very difficult to penetrate, and if you can't get in front of this, then it could wipe out entire civilizations or do some really serious damage to pockets of the galaxy. And the Republic and the Jedi would have a hard time keeping up with that. You're on mute.
I gotta get used to that. 27 minutes. Dang. So after they get through all of that discussion and, the exposition and the monologuing, they fight. And this is a very interesting fight, right? I mean, Yoda gets knocked back at one point there. There's a moment where Atha stabs him in the shoulder with his spear, which I was like, whoa, it was kind of shocking. So I was like, there's no way, right? We know how Yoda is and how powerful he is and how potent he is, that this guy would be able to even get him, a strike on him, but he does. And at first I was like, and I don't want to steal your thunder, because I know you said this when we were just kind of talking before we came on air, but I was of the same accord. Like, I felt like, whoa, that doesn't feel right. Like, why would he suddenly just be able to get that on him? The more I started thinking about it, I kind of am okay with it. Like, Yoda is 900 years old at this point, and he's pretty old, right? So, right.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean,
maybe. But also, we can't take anything away from Atha, is what I'm saying. Like, they're trying to establish that he's a very, very formidable character.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. And they're trying to do it within a page or two, like really just a handful of panels, which is really difficult to do when you got to squeeze in as much story as they tried to do in these pages of this one issue. I think that's the part they probably could have taken more time with this fight and maybe cut the end of this issue off or found a different place for it. And we'll talk about that, because the end of this issue is kind of like an epilogue type of thing that's not related. But I think this is an area we're trying to build up Atha Prime. We're trying to maybe establish him. Maybe this character is a villain to be in this story. I think this is where we get a little nervous too. We're going to have this new villain that's really front and center and powerful that we've never heard of. Even though we're a little further back, I think in this era, we're probably looking at maybe 5-ish years, maybe a little more than 5 years before Phantom Menace. Somewhere in there,
yeah,
maybe
that
5
feels
years.
about right, given Kenobi's age. I think is the
it's about the only thing we have to gauge it on is Kenobi's age. He seems like he is a teenager, but maybe a mid-teenager, right? So kind of somewhere in there. So not near as old as he is when we get to Phantom Menace. But yeah, we need to establish him. So I would have liked to see a little bit more of that. If he's going to be the big bad of the series for a while, then we need to establish that. But I think it would have been nice to give Yoda a little more credit. It's a decent fight, but it falls a little bit short, and maybe Yoda underestimated him. That's entirely possible too.
That's entirely possible.
And didn't expect some of this. But when you look at the basic attacks, it's really only a few swipes that he's knocked Yoda around, knocked him down. It's really like 3 swings in total, 2 or 3 swings that are on page. So it doesn't feel very satisfying in that way, but we have to kind of pause and set that aside a little bit and say, okay, here's the intent of it. Yeah, but it was really shocking to see Yoda get stabbed. I mean, Yoda does not take, is a piercing wound, to use your D&D terminology. It was pretty, it was somewhat serious, right? Not at his heart, but like you said, at his shoulder. Mm-hmm. It's just one of those things that it was a little bit surprising to see that, wow, we do have to take it seriously if he's going to put Yoda in his place in hand-to-hand combat and, lightsaber. He's got like a staff of some sorts or whatever that seems to be impervious to lightsaber as well. So whether that's a Mandalorian steel or something like that, we don't know, but yeah, it's something that could definitely handle a lightsaber there. So he's not hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah. And fret not, because as he stabs Yoda in the shoulder, he says the deepest cut leaves the biggest scar. And Yoda says, thank you for the reminder, as he ignites his lightsaber. And
he redeems himself.
He redeems himself, right. I mean, he levels Atha Prime right up the face, right into his helmet there, and exposes his face. And you can't really make out all the details of his face, but it's very clear that he looks like a Xerexi. So he might, the name Atha Prime, he might be the very first Xerxes. We'll talk a little bit more about this at the very end, because we learn one more thing about the species here in just a bit. But, he may be the one that's, the super intelligent one, and he's decided to just take over all of his people, right? They could have all been, non-mindless people, actually sentient beings, and he's decided to make them all his slaves and because he wants to be the only prime, the only one that's in existence, or maybe he's force sensitive. I don't know. I'm just saying, Jonesy, you never know.
Oh Lord!
But nonetheless, he has a big
Why
gash.
why does everybody have children? Gosh.
Well, we're going to get to his children here in a little bit as well. But he leaves a big gash in his helmet. After, escapes, of course, as you would expect. He knocks Yoda back. He runs off to his ship. And, as he's about to board his ship, he tells these two droids, they look like commander droids from the Clone Wars era. Tells them to deal with Vecna and Yoda. And of course, they just mince right through them without any problems. And
you can kind of see the droid there.
That's Major Domo.
But they kind of look like this, but he's just got the big, what is this, like a Roman crest, like the Roman helmets.
Yeah.
But yeah, they look somewhat like that.
But they take off, and eventually, they're like, hey, what are we going to do? We've got all these Zerexi around here. And so they call in more Jedi. They have Mace Windu that shows up. I forget who else. There was a couple other Jedi that show up. And they go through and they slaughter all of these Zerexi, the living ones and the ones that were still in the chambers. And I felt like this was kind of an interesting thing because it wouldn't have been that long ago back to the High Republic era where this would have been like a big no-no. I mean, my God, they saved the freaking Drengir, right? And they were like hesitating or feeling, sorrowful and mournful every time they killed anybody. And these guys just came in and like, no, we're killing all these living beings. Yeah. Killed everything, every single one of them. So it certainly is a big difference. I think a drastic difference than for the Jedi we had during the High Republic for these guys to come in and do what they do. But
I think maybe the key difference is over time they learned the Drengir weren't mindless creatures. Like there was something to them, and I think with these, if they were truly mindless, I mean, they didn't stick around to really find out, but.
So it was a more compassionate thing to do rather than let them live.
Well, I think this was the more prudent thing to do. And there's nothing rewarding from keeping them around, I guess. And without their leader, what are they going to do? They're unpredictable. And if he were to ever recover them, then he would have, again, an army. Yeah. It's just one of those dilemmas. You have to debate whether the Jedi are right, doing what they're doing. If they're doing it, and it's more, we've talked about this extensively. And had Laura on the show a number of times too. We talked about this extensively it's like, what's your moral compass? What's your intent from doing some of this stuff from a Jedi perspective? Not necessarily the action itself, but what's their intent or what they're trying to accomplish and what's their means for doing it, which they try to lean more heavily into than the actual action. And then that's the dilemma. That's the debate of, well, is that good enough? Right. Yeah. You're still doing the thing, but if you're doing it for the quote unquote right reasons, does it justify what you're doing? Yep. And that's the tough part with the Jedi of High Republic transitioning into this prequel era too for us.
Yep. As part of the other Jedi showing up, they start going through Atha Prime's, files, his journal, Dear Diary thing. And they learn that the Zerexi are able to self-replicate. They're autonomously replicating. So one can create another one of itself. That's part of it. So we also learned that they were trying to swarm the galaxy, but they don't know the intent, right? And that's right. Part of it. We don't know what the intent is of Atha Prime. We don't know what they're really trying to do, what they are trying to do along with the Zerexi. They just know that there was a plan to swarm the galaxy for whatever purposes. I'm sure that'll get all teased out and played out as this series goes on. And then we cut over to a really quick panel where we see Atha Prime in his ship, and he's kind of in the cargo bay or cargo hold of his ship. And he's got a bunch of these tubed Zerexi still that are housed. And so he's going off somewhere, assumingly to go reproduce more of these guys. And so he's just going to rebuild his army somewhere else at this point.
Right. Yep.
The story ends with Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan. This is completely unrelated now. This is going to tie back to that very short side story that we got at the very beginning of issue 1, where Kenobi was training with Yoda. He had a vision that somebody kills Qui-Gon Jinn. It's not Darth Maul. Someone that's more like a normal human, maybe. Well, it's not human. We know that now.
Yeah, they're Yuuzhan Vong, right?
Yeah, Yuuzhan Vong. Fine, whatever. I'll go with it. I'm totally cool with it. But he has that vision in issue 1 that really disturbs him. Well, we catch up with them now sparring. So Qui-Gon and Kenobi are sparring, and Kenobi brings it up. He's like, hey, I had this vision, this force vision where you died. And he's like, oh, it's just, it may not happen kind of thing. And then, Kenobi says that he did some investigation into who this character was. We learned that they found out the name was Corliss Wrath. And this is a part I read this like part 6 times, and I don't know that it still makes any sense to me because he shows him a picture of the character, and we know that Qui-Gon confronted him in issue number 1.
Right.
But then when he shows him the picture,
Qui-Gon says like, yeah, this is the one that attacked me.
Yeah, he even says it right. He confirms. He's like, yep, that's the guy that attacked me.
Yeah,
and then he goes, and his name is Corliss Wrath. And then Qui-Gon says, I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what?
It was really confusing. Yeah, you don't really know what just happened here. Is this a mistake in the page, in the writing? Or is this
maybe.
Is there something about the character that has broken Qui-Gon's ability to remember him? Right. So is there something else? Because again, it's important to understand that Corliss Wrath appeared in the Free Comic Book Day as well recently, and we get a little backstory because Qui-Gon's like, I don't know why this person is after me. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I don't have any beef with them. I've never seen them before, but come to find out, actually we have. And this is why you pick up you go to your Free Comic Book Day, is you get little nuggets like this, as they did a preview of the story with Qui-Gon Jinn. And at the very tail end of that, they give us these 3 panels at the end about a vendetta, and they flash back to when Qui-Gon was young with Dooku.
Yeah, Dooku's his master back there.
Yeah, and he is slashing this person across the chest, and then we see the older version, and this is Corliss Wrath, and you see this slash across his chest.
Yep.
Yeah, you see the scar, but he's asking, I don't know why he's seeking vengeance, right? And we see this come up again in another issue here in just a few minutes, but so we get a little backstory here from the Free Comic Book Day stuff here too, and you can see here's what a younger Qui-Gon and again Qui-Gon appears to be lashing out because Dooku was yelling at him. Qui-Gon,
yeah, exactly. Yep.
So he's clearly not excited about that. But again, why can't he seem to remember? Why doesn't he seem to recall this situation? Or has it just been? It's been many years, but he was just attacked by this guy. So it had a mask on, so we didn't see the face, and you can see why I said Yuuzhan Vong. I was joking about that, but some of the panels with this character, and I know other people feel more comfortable with it. There's a full body hologram of this character, so you can go look up Corliss Wrath, just RATH, and you could see the full one, and you can see it kind of looks a little Yuuzhan Vongish, not too much.
Yeah, I don't think it's Plagueis.
One of our CBS and kind of has a Plagueis vibe to it too, a little bit.
It looks more like Eddie from Iron Maiden, if you ask me.
Actually, yeah, that's probably the most accurate.
Thank you. I'm showing my age with that one. I like it. What's that?
I like it.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. Every once in a while, I get something right around here. And then it also says to be continued in Jedi Knights number 3, and it doesn't. Like, this story has nothing to do with Jedi Knights number 3.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
So I don't know what happened there.
1, 2, and 4. Yeah.
I do wonder too. Like, the way I read that is maybe it was just the way the writing was. Maybe it was a mistake in the writing, and I think what he was trying to say is, I don't know who this person is. It's a very Andor moment of like, who are you, right? Yeah. Kind of thing. It's just the way it was written. It just made it sound confusing to me, and so, anyways, it's not a big deal.
But even still, I mean, and the nature of his vendetta, amongst or against me remains unclear. Like, I don't know why he's seeking vengeance, So I mean, clearly he just doesn't remember about it. Yeah. But is there something unique about that? Anyway, we could probably beat this to death, but that's where this one ends, and it's just a peculiar way of ending. We'll probably have to wait to see how this one plays out to understand some of this dialogue.
And this is the part that is what I suspect is like the main story. It's something with, well, I guess Atha Prime is really the big thing, right? Because that was how this whole series was sold. But there is this underlining like little story arc here with Qui-Gon and this person, this Corliss Wrath, that's seeking vengeance that is teased, but it's really, I mean, tease is probably it's too powerful of a word. It's not even a tease. It's just, I don't know what's less than a tease. A flash? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're talking about. Are we still talking about comics here? I don't know anymore.
Yeah, it's like a cameo of almost sorts, but yeah.
All right.
Anyway.
Alex says, haha, see kids, Eddie's a character used by the band Iron Maiden back in, like 45 years ago, 50 years ago now. Okay. Let's move on. We're running out of time. Man, this took forever. I don't know why we said this was going to be over an hour.
Well, this issue is going to go quick.
Well, it is going to go quick.
Yeah. First of all, there's no dialogue. First of all, issue cover for issue 3, absolutely banger cover. This is just, it's so cool. For those listening, I mean, I can't describe this as well for you, but you go out to the feed and watch it. But you got one of these creatures with its mouth, and you got Qui-Gon jumping in, and Obi-Wan for scale is under its paw, and doesn't even eclipse a fingernail in size of this beast. That's how large they are. These are gigantic creatures the size of skyscrapers, is how they're described in kind of the preview material. But
yeah,
absolutely awesome cover.
Great
Raza.
cover on this one. I mean, it's brilliant. So the premise of this comic is, long story short, Senator Bail Organa flying around Tantive 4, crash lands on this planet that's uncharted in an unknown part of this. It's not unknown, I guess it's known now, but unexplored part of the galaxy. And they've sent basically Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi on a rescue mission to rescue Bail Organa and his crew. Right?
Planet WG 4587.
Yeah,
that's how unexplored it is.
Yeah, that's how unexplored. They get there, and this whole thing is done as an after-action report by Obi-Wan Kenobi, which explains why there isn't a lot of dialogue. A lot of the dialogue that we do have is a dialogue that he was, he remembers, because he actually falls unconscious here at one point. And again, it's just full pages like you're seeing on screen right now. There's no panels at all throughout any of the pages here. But they eventually show up on the planet. They start going to where the transponder signal is for the Tantive 4. They're in their T6 shuttle. They just enter the atmosphere, and suddenly they're attacked by one of these kaijura creatures that jumps up. It snaps the ship in its maw. It then bites down, and the ship explodes, or not. It crumbles, really, because nothing explodes in Star Wars unless it has to. But it crumbles, and Qui-Gon Jinn and Kenobi are both thrown out. I mean, I don't know if you got the next panel here, but it shows them free falling. There you go. You've got Kenobi, you've got Qui-Gon Jinn there. Kenobi's already fallen somewhere else. So I mean, it just completely obliterates their ship. He ends up landing, and going looking for Qui-Gon Jinn. I forgot to mention, as he's falling down, Qui-Gon takes out his lightsaber and he ignites it and uses it to kind of slide down the side of the creature and exposes a huge, gap in its armor or skin or whatever it is.
Just makes him angry.
It does. It really does just make him completely angry, because that's going to play into this a little bit later. But he gets to the ground, finds Kenobi. Kenobi's unconscious, and so he grabs Kenobi and he's trying to get out of there. Well, this creature's racked with pain because of what just happened, and so I don't know if it falls. It felt like it fell over because it hits, and then there was a boom that pushed them even further than they were. I mean, threw Kenobi out of the arms of Qui-Gon Jinn. So it's just, all this is done to really kind of accentuate the fact that they're massive creatures. Like Jonesy said, they talk about how they're as tall as skyscrapers. And so it is our Star Wars equivalent of, the kaiju or Godzillas and all that other stuff. So King Kongs, if you will. They eventually find Bail Organa's ship.
They find them pretty quick, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's we're not going to, why even talk about this? It's really just to display these big monsters. But they find a Tantive 4.
When you think of it through the terms of an after-action report, though, it's just getting to the parts that matter.
Yeah, right.
Which is kind of interesting, a different way of storytelling without all the fluff.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's creative. They used all that. It wasn't, if you really think about it, it is a creative way to kind of put the story together. But they find the ship. The ship can't fly. It can't take off. It can fly. It's just not able to lift off the ground.
Yeah, repulsor lifts are 50%. So they can get off, but they can't. What I think they were trying to say is they can get off the ground, but they don't have enough power to break atmosphere to actually go and then do hyperspace, right?
Yep. And to make things even worse, there is a herd of these kaijura that are approaching them very quickly. And there's a really cool aerial shot where you can see them, and they're massive. There's 6 or 7 of these things that are running towards them.
Yeah.
And so Qui-Gon goes all Jedi, super Jedi here, and decides that he's just going to sit there, squat, use the Force to lift up the Tantive 4 by himself, which is an awesome display of his powers. I don't know that we've ever seen Qui-Gon's powers used this way, quite honestly. Can you think of an instance in comics or
in the only once, I think, but it was really subjective on how you want to view it. Remember the Age of Republic comic where he has the stuff that's taking over his body in the dark side?
Oh yeah, when he's in the tree.
It's maybe that might be the only time. And I think again, I don't know if he was lifting the ship, but he was definitely giving the ship another boost of power to escape. But then you have the creature literally just grab it and stick it up in its face, and it's like a child looking at a toy for the first time, and they're got it all up in their face. Is really, and that's the visual, folks. I'm not making this up. Yep. The beast just captures the Tantive 4 in his claw, and it's roughly the size if you were to go pick up a Statue of Liberty thing in New York, like a little keepsake
Souvenir.
artifact. Yeah, souvenir. It's like that. It's what it looks like. But
Yeah.
they have a pretty brilliant idea to escape it, though. They want to fire lasers at it, but all the batteries are damaged. There's no weapons on this thing anymore. They actually have a pretty clever way of breaking through and giving that space that they need to get the rest of the way. But the panel, real quick, of Qui-Gon in meditation, legs crossed, floating like Avar Kriss, hand extended. Like, again, this issue from an artwork perspective, just so many great pages. Like, can't even call them panels, just so many great pages in general. And that page of Qui-Gon is actually, it's pretty epic if you love Qui-Gon, and if you love Jedi being Jedi and kind of being forced badasses in that moment. That's Qui-Gon Jinn in this one. It's kind of worth a look, and go flip through that in your local comic shop.
Yeah, it's certainly a moment for sure. Matthew said, looks like I need to go back to Pittsburgh Comics. I guess he's going to pick up a copy. And he says that woman looks like cyberpunk Avar Kriss too. That's one up. Which woman?
Oh, Vecna Mooncrest.
Oh, Vecna. Okay. Yeah, I can see that. But yeah, so they're in the clutches of this Kai Jura, and since they don't have lasers, they fire off all the escape pods, which is enough to distract it so they can get out of there. They jump into hyperspace. And that's really how the comic ends. It ends that quickly. There's nothing more to it. So no side story, nothing else. It was just, a visual display, honestly, of really great artwork.
And after all these years, they didn't replenish most of those escape pods because when they get captured in A New Hope.
Now it explains
yeah,
why they were so limited.
That's not what we're saying has actually happened, but it's not saying, but it is probably what happened.
I got called a Star Wars apologist on social media tonight, by the way. So
well, that's not
fine with it.
It's not untrue. Yeah.
So, okay. Well, I didn't dispute it. I just took the comment and fired back. Okay. Let's get to.
No, you didn't. I don't believe you.
I did.
You engaged in social media antics? No way.
Yep. I did. Time out for me. Okay, let's talk about the last issue, which is the Phaedra Gambit. That's the name of the comic. And this one's pretty straightforward. There's basically been a bank robbery at the Galactic Bank of Coruscant. Of course, the intergalactic banking clan that's run by the Muns. They're part of all of this, and so they've asked a Jedi to come and help get the money back, which seems like something beyond the scope of what a Jedi would do. But it's, again, Qui-Gon Jinn. They're really, going to the well with Qui-Gon, and he's the pull because he's in every one of these issues. But they dispatch Qui-Gon and Shakti to Coruscant to try to find out what happened. They sit down with this banker, and they learn that there is a senator by the name of Senator Becca who had a bunch of, I think it was like 10,000 credits. Right. Those credits were stolen. What they didn't know was that these credits were actually being held by her, and they belonged to Jabba the Hutt, which already is a big no-no. And they talked about, okay, this is something, that's she's going to have, Qui-Gon mentions, okay, she's going to have to face, legal punishment for this because that's just not right. But then we also learned that, Senator Becca has a lot of power and a lot of sway. And so they're asking for the Jedi to help. That's the premise of this. While all that's going on, let me back up because I'm going to jump out of order just because it makes sense from a storytelling perspective. This
issue was laid out kind of like Ocean's 11-ish, a little bit.
That's
so
a good
you have that kind of framing in mind if you've seen those movies, like the back and forth and the things you didn't see, the pieces getting moved around without you knowing, which is a little bit of an annoyance of mine. But yeah, keep that in mind as we go through this because that's kind of how this issue is framed up.
Yeah. No, thank you for doing that because that does kind of frame it up nicely. So they decide they're going to go look at the surveillance equipment for the bank. They realize there was a ship that was kind of hanging out at the bank right around the time that happened. It has a very unique design, and it does, but that's kind of a story element that's used a little bit later, so it's important to note. They also learned that this character is Phaedra that we mentioned earlier. She's a bounty hunter. She's appeared in other things. I think it was
She was in Han Solo and Chewbacca back in 2022, like 4 issues there.
Yeah, she was in that too. She kind of looks like Domino in a lot of ways. If you know who Domino is from Marvel.
She's like
you can see right there.
Yeah, if Domino and Lobo had a daughter, she would kind of look like this.
Yeah.
For comic book nerds out there.
Crossing the streams there on that one, but
yeah, that's DC and Marvel. I know I did, but still, it's kind of accurate.
Yep.
She's a really cool design character. She's a Quaraxian which is kind of interesting because those are very rare species. They're kind of near extinct. So it's really cool to see one on screen. And it's really awesome design, though.
Yeah. And they're known to be like super intelligent, and they age very slowly as well. So I don't know, maybe that plays a little bit later, but whatever. So they realize that this is her. They find her ship and they make their way to Nar Shaddaa after Phaedra has made entry into Nar Shaddaa, which if you don't know where Nar Shaddaa is, it's from the Old Republic. I'm just going to throw that out there. But it's a planet where all the criminals and all the gamblers, and it's like an entire planet that's basically the cantina for Mos Eisley, right?
Right.
So they found her ship going into that planet. They found a report of that. And so they head out there to go find her. Qui-Gon, as they're there on Nar Shaddaa, he senses that there's a presence around him that feels threatened in some way. And he's able to recognize that the threat that he's feeling has nothing to do with Phaedra or the credits or anything else. And it turns out it's, Corliss Wrath, the guy that we just talked about in the last issue.
Right.
He's up on top of some building looking down at Qui-Gon Jinn. So he's still plotting his, vengeance. And nothing ever comes of it. That's really the only piece that we get in this issue. There's no confrontation between Corliss Wrath and Qui-Gon Jinn. In this issue, it's just another reminder that, hey, this guy is stalking him or, knows where he is, keeping track on where he is at all times.
It's interesting that he's able to track him this time because before there was a tracking device on his cloak. So how did he find him this time? Right?
Yeah.
So there's some questions there about how he's able to do this, but clearly setting some things up to happen here in a few issues.
Yep. All right, let's go over to Phaedra's and we'll kind of pull the two together. So Phaedra is basically, we open up with her being chased by bounty hunters. Jabba's put out a bounty. She has Bane Malar, who's...
Well, first we're introduced to her on Malastare with Jango Fett.
Oh, I skipped that part. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a really weirdly
It's a really
issue.
quick scene, right? Yeah. And
it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it will make sense at the very end. Jango Fett is actually trying to collect on the bounty. She stops him and says, look, I'll pay you triple the amount if you do me this favor, right? If you do me, what was it that she called it? Yeah, it was basically a favor. And it stops right there.
Yeah.
Right. And we don't get to see any more of that. We'll come back to that at the very, very end.
Right.
Then we cut over to her being chased by 3 bounty hunters. She's being chased by Bane Malar, Zam Wessel, who we know from The Phantom Menace, and then Aura Singh as well from The Phantom Menace in that 1-2-second shot that we see her in.
Right.
She's being chased by these 3 bounty hunters. She's got a bounty that's basically, dead or alive. They want her dead, or they want they want her dead or alive, I should say. This is all from Jabba the Hutt.
Hey, you know what her vehicle? So on the screen right now, you can see the vehicle that she drives.
Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of?
Chopper or R2?
No, the Spaceballs van.
Oh, the Winnebago.
Yeah, the Winnebago. It kind of reminds me of it a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that.
Sorry for the detour, but
no, it's fine. Yeah, it's a good detour. But yeah, the bounty hunters are after her. They eventually chase her all the way to Nar Shaddaa. They agree to team up against her and just split the bounty 3 ways because it's so huge. They have Phaedra at Blast Point. They finally catch up with her and they kind of have her at Blast Point. And she tells them that she's rigged the credits inside the ship to explode if she dies. And then she clarifies, "Oh, I'm not telling you this. I'm telling the Jedi that are standing behind you this." And we turn around and see that Qui-Gon and Shakti are there. They've somehow followed. She's left a trail. They never explain this, and I don't really care. Somehow she's left a trail for them to kind of find her here because her thinking is, hey, the Jedi are not going to allow someone just to be innocently killed. They're going to, protect me. And they both agree. They're like, yeah, she's right. We're not going to let her just die, even if there's a bounty for her.
This is why I mentioned Ocean's 11, because it's very much all of these things have to go exactly right. We've planned for every scenario, and then we've got a couple of backup scenarios too. And This is kind of what it feels like, because the way that the security footage is, she made sure that she was directly aligned in it. You could see her ship. You could see all the different aspects of her ship, because she's trying to sell some of this too. And we figure some of this out a little bit later on, but she's trying to sell some of this to drop those breadcrumbs because, like you said, she knows the Jedi won't let her die. And that's her kind of scapegoat here. And then she's developed some other plans later on because she kind of knows everything that's going to go on, which is interesting because the mistake she makes seems like a mistake she shouldn't have made. But
yeah. Well, and they do kind of explain this as part of this race. They're like supposed to be extremely intelligent, right?
Right.
Be able to think like 3-4 steps ahead. And so you kind of see where this seems a little impossible, but you have to give her credit because of her race and how intelligent she is.
Right.
Okay, so they say, well, we're not going to let her die. And so they engage with the bounty hunters. They have a little battle that's going on there. And while that's going on, Phaedra jumps in her ship, and I'm going to use air quotes. She jumps in her ship, flies off. Qui-Gon tells Shakti not to follow the bounty hunters, so they let the bounty hunters go because Qui-Gon knows something that the bounty hunters don't know. And we'll tell you what that is in just a second. They eventually catch up with her ship, and then Zam is the one that pulls the shot. She's really excited about this. She shoots down Phaedra's ship. It explodes, and they think they've killed her, right? And so that's the very end. Then we flash over to Ord Mantell, which we're all familiar with from a number of things now, but more the first time was, of course, Empire Strikes Back. We have Phaedra, and she's alive and well. There's nothing wrong with her, as a matter of fact. And Qui-Gon and Shakti have...
And she's got her ship. Yeah.
And she has her ship, right. And they followed her there, and they confront her, and we learned that she switched ships at one point, and that Qui-Gon could tell because, and you can kind of see it here in the panel, the symbol that's on the upper engine or whatever that is, that symbol was different than the symbol that was on the ship that she flew off in, right? So again, it's, subversion a little bit here.
It's the old switcheroo.
Switcheroo, right. So she had this decoy ship, and she sacrificed, we didn't talk about her droid, RJN2, but there was a droid that she had that was introduced at the very beginning of the issue, and that was who was flying the decoy ship. And, rest in peace, he's dead. There's no way he survived that. But then she says, look, you guys can't take me in. We're not marshals. And they're like, yeah, we can't. But this guy can. And we're introduced to Marshal Buck Vanko, who I don't know if he's going to have a reoccurring role.
Part of the Benelux Marshal Service.
I don't know where this is from. I love it, though. I mean, this is like a lot of world building here going on.
Looks like, oh gosh, who's our favorite Sith that is the artist? Momin.
Momin.
Almost looks like a Momin type of mask.
Yeah. I do like his design. I hope we get to see him more. Cool. It feels like they spent time on him, but I don't know. We'll see.
Well, not really.
I don't know.
Showed him arresting her, basically.
Yeah, he shows up. He arrests her. And
she goes to jail.
She goes to jail or whatever. And then we learn that the favor so remember she asked Jango Fett for a favor. The favor that she asked Jango Fett was in the event that she was captured, he needed to rescue her. And so he does. So he ends up rescuing her from the ship. They take the credits and they end up going to, I don't think they ever actually really say where they went. I mean, I assume it's Nar Shaddaa because that seems like a place you do a lot of gambling.
Yeah. They went back to Malastare.
It was Malastare. Thank you. Yes, that's where they went. All right. And so the whole point of this thing, this like really complex scheme that she had, was to steal these credits, take them to Malastare, use that as like a physical asset deposit to make a crazy bet on some kind of gambling or whatever it is, and then make a ton of money off the gamble, and then return she had every intention of returning the credits at some point. She just needed the equity there to start all of that, right? The physical equity of the credits themselves. And she does that. They win it, whatever she does the gambling, she gets a ton of money from it. Jango gets his share, of course. And then it ends with Qui-Gon and Shakti leaving back to Coruscant, and they have all the credits back in the ship. So seems like, super complex and really risky, but it was a cool little ride. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was mental gymnastics a little bit. This is one you had to read 2 or 3 times to make sure you kind of understood it. I like the story in general. Like I kind of like the characters they did, and the story, was all fine. The thing I don't like, and I've talked about this for a number of years now on the show, I don't like it when they make a change on you and said, "Oh no."
Oh, I know.
we made the switcheroo, but they don't show you any of it to where you have any idea. Because I went and looked. There's a picture of the ship on the security footage, and you could see it. And you don't have to zoom in, you can kind of see it. It's the same logo that's on the screen right now, like this one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I think it's the same one. So they didn't show us the other logo. And so for example, for those listening, the logo on the ship that we see that's like spray painted on like Sabine type stuff is a circle with like a bullhorn type of face on it or something like that. It's all in red. The alternate logo was like that, almost upside down, but without the circle. So it was another red bull type of face or whatever, triangular type of shape on it. Not the same, clearly not the same. So they're very different, but you don't see that until the very end when they're right up on the ship, when Qui-Gon and Shaak-Ti, come and confront her with, in front of the original ship, not the decoy. I don't like that stuff. I don't like it when they, you didn't see it coming, because you didn't see it coming. Literally, you didn't do it. I don't find that interesting. Like that just frustrates me as a reader. That's a personal preference thing, but that's my only that's not even a nitpick. That's my complaint about this issue, because otherwise I actually rather enjoyed it. A little complex for one issue to try to play all of that out at once, but they did it fairly well, and she explained it. I think Mark Guggenheim used the dialogue well enough to kind of explain what will happen, and ponying up the collateral, like the situation and stuff. You got to do a little bit of gymnastics to get there, but it works well enough in Star Wars to where you can kind of believe it. Now, would Jango Fett make this kind of deal in the first place? I think that's one of the questions I would have right off the bat is, would he have made this deal, or would he have just done the bounty and taken her in? We know what Boba Fett would have done.
Yeah.
But I guess I don't know if we know. I don't remember enough about Jango Fett to know if he was that type of bounty hunter, or if he was willing to make kind of these side deals, or maybe Phaedra laid all this out for him. Like, look, he's going to get the money back. You're going to get the bounty, or no one's really going to get the bounty, I guess, because he's getting the credits back.
Yeah.
So what's it? I mean, besides him making money, why would Jabba cancel the bounty? Because he kind of got one pulled over his eyes. Because now he's going to have these other clowns going saying, "Hey, we killed her."
Yeah. Where's the money?
And then, but your money shows up, and turns out she's alive. But maybe they left it off thinking that Phaedra believes that no, she's kind of dead to the galaxy now. Maybe, and that everybody's kind of happy. And I don't know if that's what we're supposed to draw from it. I think that's probably what we're trying to conclusion we're supposed to draw from it. But anyway, so a more complex issue than we're used to seeing in a Star Wars comic, which is a welcome thing, but also a few things here. I just don't like it when we do these kind of tricks where we trick the reader, and I don't like feeling like intentionally tricked and withheld information that, clearly should have been visual. If they would have shown that security footage, like that the emblem was different, at least then you could have flipped back, and this is why I think it's fun. You flip back to that page, you're like,
oh, I missed that.
Oh, I could see that. It was there.
I can see that. Yeah.
And then you would say, yeah, Qui-Gon Jinn is smart because he sees it right there too. It is clearly different. And we'll go back and look at this again, but I swear up and down, I do not think this was in the security footage whatsoever. And I couldn't get that one because it's not part of the preview. It was literally like one panel later. Yeah. So, or one page later.
Yeah,
anyway, I'll put my soapbox away now.
Yeah, so if you'd like to help Jonesy, please write to grievances@thecantinacast.com. No, I'm kidding.
That email address doesn't work. That just forwards to Mike Rondo.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We forward that one. It's automatic forward.
Right.
Alex said the ending felt a little cheesy. 1980 Saturday morning cartoon. Everyone laughed together because the credits rolled. Super campy. Was great. So he enjoyed the one issue he was able to read.
This is like a pure comic issue, like through and through, which again is
not a bad
really,
thing.
really good.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't want to take it away from that. It's just that one, how they did it. And I just don't like that part. But I like this issue quite a bit, actually. I love this character like a lot. Like this is another cool character that I haven't really been as excited about since like a Dr. Aphra type of character, just design wise and attitude and ability and things like that. Like that type of dynamic type of character. Son of Star Wars fell a little flat for me, but Aphra and then this character, different spectrums here, but really cool character. I'm glad they brought her back.
Yeah. Hopefully
I didn't like the Han Solo. I didn't like the Han Solo Chewbacca arc either, by the way. They were like taking pills that made them act like they were dead, and they were sneaking each other out of the prison cell, and then Han had to come in and rescue them at the end of the day. It was dumb.
That's why we didn't cover it.
Yeah, that series got started off okay, and then lost me. Han Solo's dad and stuff, and
Anyways, Marshall Book Vanko. That's my takeaway. I can't wait to cosplay as that character. One up says he looks like a Destiny character.
Oh, Bane Mullar. Yeah, he's got like this helmet and these.
No, not Bane Mullar. The other guy, Marshall Buck Vanko.
Marshall.
The Marshall that came in.
Oh yeah, a little bit. So does Bane Muller though.
Oh,
no, he looks more
like an astronaut.
Looks more like Titanfall. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I can see that. Man, we've done a lot of pop culture references in this show tonight. So
this is what we do, man. Yeah, bring back the basement.
Anyways, on that note, issue number 5 is going to have Yaddle and Sierra, which is one of the newer characters that was introduced in issue 1. They are potentially going to have to save Dooku's life. And it was interesting the way they framed that one or tease it up is like, hey, she potentially could be saving the life of someone who is going to kill her later down the road. Because if you didn't know, Dooku kills Yaddle. Sorry, spoiler, but yeah. But cool. Again, if you're a fan of the prequel era Jedi, getting a Yaddle issue is like, hell yeah, let's see what this is like. Because I want to see how good she is. I mean, we saw her fight. Oh no, she didn't really fight. Oh yeah, she did. She fought Dooku there for a little bit, but I'd like to see more of her.
Yeah, she had time in Living Force, of course.
Yes,
I didn't mean to rhyme there, but yeah, with John Jackson Miller was great for Yaddle as well. A little bit in Tales of the was that the Empire or Jedi? No, Tales of the Jedi, right?
Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah. So again, always good to see her on the page and see what they do differently with the character and give her that limelight. This is kind of what's cool about the Jedi Knight series is that you get kind of 2 Jedi at a time now.
Right.
They set them all kind of up to introduce you a little bit. You get all the players, but they're kind of mixing and matching a little bit. And again, I want to see how they tie the narrative, though. That's the part I think we're, like we said at the top of the show, we're kind of missing that piece of it right now to understand what's a general flow going to look like. And again, I think we should temper expectations in that way because we don't have as much structure as we had with like the Star Wars or the Darth Vader lines where they're somewhat following a path towards a known destination because they're in between movies. And so you have a little bit of a path there and you're only going to have 2 or 3 things, but even those go off on kind of wild tangents. So now that we've got a very open area many years before a movie, you have a lot of flexibility and they can take this in a variety of directions and kind of do a little world building to an extent and also some character building for characters we don't have and make it feel like there are a lot more Jedi than what we have been exposed to through the movies that you just don't have enough time and enough screen real estate to be able to do all of this all the time. And the books and the comics do a great job of bringing more characters to the forefront. And you get to see, like you mentioned earlier in the show, the dynamic aspects of the characters too, like different types of characters that they're not all like Yoda and Mace Windu and stuff. You have a lot of Anakin-like characters in there as well.
Yeah.
Not quite so far, but you do have flavors of that too.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I would say, if I was paying $3.99 for this comic, I wouldn't be disappointed. Right. So I don't know if that sways anybody or anybody feels like I'm not sure this is something I want to pick up. If you have the Marvel U subscription, then issue 4 or issue 1 just came out because they do every 3 months before they show up. So you can read the first one for free, or you're paying monthly for it. But if you have the Marvel U subscription, that one's already out there. So it's worth it. I think it's delivered on my expectations, and it's something that I wouldn't feel bad about paying $3.99 a month on my Pulse subscription. So
yeah, I think the Marvel Unlimited stuff tends to be a pretty good value if you're going to read more. If you're going to read 2 or 3 books, pretty regularly, especially if they're the monthly books, you're going to get that. If you're going to get anything more than monthly, it's pretty decent as long as you're not in a hurry. If you have to have that new, then that's not going to really work for you. Go down to your comic shop and and take a look and see what they've got, or you have to buy it. I mean, it's always available to you. You could buy it, but go down to your local comic shop, flip through, give them some business if you feel so inclined, and kind of see. As I think these look really good on the page, like the physical page too. So these are a lot of fun to have. And if you have kids, you can kind of show. And these are great kid friendly, or I'll say kid friendly because we don't know enough quite yet, but I think they seem to be okay for smaller children to be able to read too. Like your middle schoolers and stuff like that in elementary school. I think they would, potentially get into some of this. You may have to explain this last issue because it's complicated, but
right.
Beyond that though, I think it's kind of good family reading material too so far.
I was just looking, I've been a Marvel U subscriber for 11 years straight now.
That's insane, man.
Yeah. I think it's,
I miss Comixology. I used to do the Comixology version.
Well, I miss physical comics. I just don't have the room for them. I mean, I've got so many, and so that's why I went to it, and don't regret it in some days, but some days I do. And I still, you guys know, I've picked up occasional comics here and there, especially for the covers and all that. But I really miss, going and getting like 20 issues on a Wednesday morning and sitting down and doing nothing but read comics. It's
there's 2 glorious words in the English language for a comic collector, and that's pull list. And that's what you get at the comic book shop when you go down there and your weekly visit, and they pull your card in the box, and man, it's like Christmas Christmas most weeks. There's some weeks are a little bit light, but man, I miss doing that too. Better Rock City Comics was my place.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's end it there. Before we get out of here, how about some shout outs and thank yous to folks that joined us tonight?
Yeah, thanks everyone to come out to the live stream, kntcast.com/YouTube. Again, thanks for the download. We hope you come out and say hello next time. Music Train, Alex, my Star Wars guys, What Up for CPU, Steph, Matthew. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for chiming in the chat. Thanks for engaging. Thank you, Alex, for defining who Eddie from Iron Maiden is. We appreciate that.
Stephanie especially.
Stephanie needed it because not exposed to that. But cantinacast.com/YouTube. We'd love for you to join us in the live stream next time. And again, cantinacast.com/Patreon, especially if you are an Acolyte fan. We're going to do our 1 year later kind of revisit of that like we do for every series, really. And right at 1 year. So that'll be interesting to kind of see how our perspectives have changed. Right off of Andor, it might not be a little bit fair in some ways, but it's a very different piece of material. So it's going to be interesting to revisit it a year later. Some of the other material that we have, does it help? Does it hurt? Has it really changed anything? And how's it aged after the course of a year and how we feel about it? So we're going to bring that on our Patreon channel. We'd love for you to join us there.
And I'm looking forward to watching it again. Like I haven't touched it since all the discourse, and my gosh, that was like a fire all the time. But I'm looking forward to watching it before Sunday. There's
gonna be one key difference though, Albert, compared to like Andor.
Yeah,
is that it's not going to take like a month and a half to watch it.
That's true.
So,
that's very true.
I'm looking forward to that. That's a complaint for Andor.
No, it's not. But
it's a perk for what we've been doing. So it's a nice bonus right now. That it's more easily consumable than what we've been dealing with for the last month or more.
The Andor consumption PTSD is real still. I still feel it.
And then we're going to come back and do more Andor here in the coming weeks. So
good plug. We've got more Andor shows that we're going to break down right after we get to this. But we want to do this. It'd feel weird if we did it and then jumped into this and then came back to Andor. So we decided to kind of put this up front first.
A little palate cleanser for us though too.
Yeah,
like the comic too. Just give us a little break from that. Let our minds rest a little bit, and then we can pick back up and get back into the weeds of seriousness.
All right. Well, speaking of breast and weeds, we're going to end the show there. I don't know if that didn't make any sense. All right. Thanks, guys, for joining us, and we'll see you on Sunday.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.